The past is in the past. Why can't we just move on? Can't we move forward? Why do you keep bringing this up? Can you just leave it alone? That's not who I am. I'm different now. All of these different thoughts and phrases and questions narcissists oftentimes will come up with to try to avoid the past, to try to avoid you bringing up past mistakes, past problems, all the things that he's dragged you through. Why? What's the point? Why is there such an aversion to things in the past? What's going on from trying to run away from the things that are happening in the past? If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness, growth, healing, change, and development. The goal inside of what I do is to provide transformation for you, helping you break the trauma bond, get rid of the triggers that are affecting you on a day-to-day basis, help you establish who you are, and build healthy boundaries. I teach the freedom formula, which is breaking people out of the addiction of being back into a toxic relationship, cycling back, getting sucked back in over and over and over again. If I can help you with that, go to rawmotivations.com today. When we talk through this piece of this aspect of like where he's struggling to go to the past, you try to bring something up. He's like, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to talk about it. You're like, why? What's the big deal? Like, I need closure. You got your closure. You know what it is. Like, there's so many pieces that he will not go into the past. Why is the narcissist trying to avoid this so much? Okay? That's what we're talking about. Two main things I want you to understand. One of the main reasons why narcissists is trying to avoid anything in the past, because it brings up accountability, brings up responsibility. It unlocks a piece where he has to confront the former version of himself, or currently how he's still showing up. It unlocks this piece of guilt and shame. Now, when we talk about guilt and shame, sometimes first people's aspect is like narcissists don't feel any guilt. They don't feel feelings, all this kind of stuff. It's not true. Okay, there's no even evidence for that, and then there's no evidence even in my own life, so it's not true. Okay, the other piece in it is guilt oftentimes for narcissists is felt in a very fast-paced, microscopic way. Guilt, okay, it's not that it's not there, it's that it's dealt with differently than how you deal with guilt. It doesn't sit very long. The reason why it doesn't sit very long is the narcissist can't handle it. Okay, most narcissists are cowards. They're not willing to actually deal with their feelings. They're running away from it. So whenever I would feel guilt, I'd be like, whew, don't want to feel that. Push it away. Compartmentalization, dissociation, like whatever I have to do to avoid the pain of having any guilt in my life, because the pain of having guilt affected the mask of me thinking I was an amazing person. Because amazing people don't make mistakes. The amazing people don't have issues. Amazing people don't do bad things, right? That's the idea. So the guilt would have to get processed really quick, have to get pushed to the side. Process is not the right word there. Push to the side, okay? And so I would push the guilt to the side. The reason why I had to push the guilt to the side is because if the guilt stuck around too long, it would tell me and it would show me I just did something bad. That's the guilt, which leads automatically then for narcissists into shame, which is I am bad. Now this is polar opposite to the mask of I'm a good person. I'm a good guy, but yeah, I lie. I'm a good guy, but I look at pornography. Yeah, I'm a good guy, but I cheat. All of these different things were incongruent. So for me, I didn't want to deal with the guilt and the shame of all the shit that I was doing. Because if I had to deal with it, then I had to sit in this pit of shame. Narcissists avoid the pit of shame no matter what. Because if they sit in it, they have to realize the simple fact that they're the one responsible for their own results. Here's the piece is nobody likes to be responsible for their own results. Nobody likes to have this accountability of where they are and what's going on. Shame for a narcissist just feels different. It just looks different than what it might in the average person. So hard because some people will be like, yeah, I deal with shame all the time. You just get over it. You just work through it. And the narcissist is like, whoa, like that seems impossible because when I deal with shame, it feels like I'm going to die. Okay, so there's a different level there of like pain and intensity. What you see a lot of times is narcissists that will avoid shame and guilt no matter what the cost to them or to other people. Meaning if I have to avoid shame and guilt and it means I have to hurt and abuse you, that's better than it being hurt and abuse on me because I can't handle that because of the shame and the guilt. You see what I mean? It's messed up thinking. I don't expect you to be like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Like it just makes sense logically and I'm trying to break it down so it makes sense to you. But this piece, like it doesn't fit in your exact bubble of reality. Why? Because you don't live this way. This is not how you operate. This is not how you act. But this is what is currently going on inside the narcissist's head. The shame and the guilt that keeps wanting to avoid the past. Now, in my journey and in the growth and in the transformation that's happened in my life over the past several years, there's moments where my wife wants to bring up the past. Like a good 2+ years of going through stuff and being like, yeah, this came up today. This came up today. And first response is I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to deal with this, because it was so much easier for me to just push it to the side, box it up, and be like, done with that. Let's just ignore it. Narcissists are really good at compartmentalization, boxing up different aspects of their life, putting it on a shelf, and then acting like that box doesn't even exist anymore. That person doesn't exist, those feelings don't exist, that emotion doesn't exist, whatever was going on in that time, it doesn't even exist anymore. So why would we even want to bring it up? Because bringing it up unlocks this piece of shame, unlocks this piece of guilt. So as a part of my journey that I had to give that up. I had to give up the piece of trying to avoid the past. Because if I didn't start confronting the past, not for myself, but for my wife, nothing was going to change. Everything was going to stay in this cycle. I would avoid the past. I would lie about it. Then my wife would find out about it. Then she'd get upset. Then I'd avoid the past and I'd lie about it. It was a cycle and I hated it. But I didn't know how to get out of it because I was always running away from shame, thinking, well, I'm protecting myself so I don't actually feel hurt. Because hurt and feelings and emotions, they're bad. So a lot of stories, a lot of things we're not going to be able to go into just in my journey. But inside of this whole piece, it's trying to run away from the past to avoid guilt and shame. Now, that's not the only reason. I said there was 2 reasons. The other reason I want to bring to you is oftentimes a narcissist wants you to forget about the past in order to continue the abuse in the present. Consider for a moment you've been with a guy and he's cheated on you multiple times. And you think, why would I keep taking him back over and over and over? People ask this all the time to me and on my social media and content. They're like, why would your wife even take you back? Part of the journey inside of the cheating and the affairs, one was the first aspect. The first affair happened, and then there was a confession. First affair, and then told her. And then she didn't know anything else about the other 4 affairs until pretty much they all got told at once. Okay? So it's gunny sacking all of it, and then boom, everything was in her face. Period of time, hurt, working through stuff, therapy, then she left. Okay? She didn't leave when she found out about the 4th affairs. She was so trauma bonded at that point, she stayed for a good while. Okay? She stayed for a good while because she was still stuck. Then as she got more therapy and got worked on her and continued to grow and develop her, she separated because she didn't see the work inside of me. She didn't see transformation happening. She saw external modification change, me white knuckling it through trying to be a better person, but not really changing anything inside. So as a result, she's like, I'm out. When we talk through this piece of narcissists avoiding the past to continue the abuse in the present, oftentimes it's discounting what happened so that you don't focus on what happened so you can continue doing what's happening now. So cheating is a great example because simply the fact he cheats on you and then he starts to say, let's just move on. Conditioning you to not think about that anymore, or conditioning your mind to be like, oh, I shouldn't think about that anymore. That's bad because that's hurting our relationship now. When there's many times that you need to be able to focus on the closure piece of what happened, what's going on. Now, there's different levels and there's different aspects of, okay, details might be too much, might not help. There's all different levels of that, and you have to kind of consider through that for yourself of what's going to help you the most. But at the end of the day, there's a piece where when you need to revisit the trauma, when you need to revisit the hurt and the betrayal, try to figure some of it out, you need to be able to process that with someone, and he's got to be able to provide that space. I wasn't good at providing that space early on. So what I would do is I would do drip truths. I would do this aspect of where I'd communicate something, and that would be a partial truth. Then she would be satisfied for a bit, and then she'd come back later and be like, but what about this? And then I'd get stuck in another line, have to communicate more. So it's dripping the truth slowly but slowly. Worst way possible to do it. It'd be much better if you sat down and got full disclosure from the toxic guy in your life than it would be to continue ask him questions. Side note, narcissists always love to be able to say, ask me anything, I'll be honest. No, that's him saying, hey, let me know how much you know so I can decide how honest I'm actually going to be. That's all it is. So if you hear that, understand that's just manipulation, okay? Because if he was actually honest, he could sit down and actually just tell you everything. But the problem is, I don't know what to tell you because I don't know what you know. See what I mean? They'll manipulate so much. So oftentimes he wants you to avoid the past because he wants to continue the abuse. So let's not talk about it. That's in the past. The past is in the past. Let's continue to move on. So you start to learn how to compartmentalize, how to dissociate, how to back stuff up, because he's training you. He's training you that that's not okay to bring up. And then it happens again. And then a couple days later, that's not okay to bring up. Then it happens again. That's not okay to bring up. Slowly conditioning you to take the shit from him. He's building your level of tolerance of how much he can give to you, of how much he can do to you, and not have you react or respond in a negative way, but he still gets the supply and the encouragement and the support from you the way that he wants. Do you see how this works? So the whole goal of past is in the past, let's ignore it, let's not talk about it. It's all to be able to continue that abuse, to avoid shame and guilt, and to be able to continue that abuse. How much is he saying this to you right here, right now? And he's not willing to deal with his past actions and mistakes. He's not willing to own it, to be accountable. And you're struggling, feeling stuck. If you're stuck right now inside the toxic relationship, I want to provide you hope that you can be liberated, you can be freed, because you're not crazy, you're not alone, and you're not helpless. Please reach out for help. Because if you don't take the first step in reaching out, no one else will. He's not coming to fix you. No one else is coming to save you. You have the opportunity of taking back your life, moving from victim to survivor to thriver, and I want to help you with that today. So go to rawmotivations.com today and let's talk some more.